Okay, our second presentation is titled The Reluctant Evolution of an Award-Winning Online Instructor by Associate Professor David Forde, who is at Stamford International University here in Bangkok. And a quick note on the title. This title did not come from the author. We had to come up with a title for it, and he would never have claimed himself that he's the award-winning online instructor. We put that in there, but he is. The reality is he won the Global Award for Excellence in Online Teaching for the University of Maryland, which has one of the widest online distance learning programs in the world. He's been teaching with them for, I think, 10 years or longer. And he'll tell you the story of how it worked. But he is an award-winning instructor, but he didn't say it. We did for him. Okay, so I appreciate him coming to speak with us today. And David, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Howard. Appreciate that. Nice to see everybody. Like a real giant up there. Do I need the mic though? Can you? Maybe I don't.
Yes, well, you do.
I do.
It's hard in the back. It is.
Do I need this?
You do.
Really? Okay. Okay. I will use it. I don't like it. I don't let my students use it in my speech and presentation classes. So I guess the acoustics in here are so good. This does not work, right? Am I correct with that? Okay. All right. I'll do this. Anyway, it's glad to be here. I was very honored and flattered to be invited to do it. Online teaching has been in my life for the last 14 years now, as it is, which I guess in the online world is a fairly long time. So I want to just take you a little bit on a journey and how this happened and how I managed to enjoy online teaching finally after not really wanting to do it. So I'll explain that to you in a second. In 2003, I had been teaching for University of Maryland since 1994. And I came to Thailand in 1994 to help open the University of Maryland, and we were opening a campus in Hua Hin. The plan was, with the joint venture partner, Ryman Land, to be the standalone kind of showcase campus for Southeast Asia coming from America. So, and a few years into my tenure teaching at the American Embassy here, and teaching a lot of State Department, Foreign Service, ambassadors, military. So for a couple of years, I was part-time, basically, but building the program in Hua Hin and working with the joint venture partner to try to make that happen. So then, 1997. What happened in 1997? The economy crashed. And overnight, the baht went from 25, which had been pegged to the US dollar, from 25 to 52 overnight. So all of a sudden, Ryman Land had the worst debt equity ratio in Thailand. A wonderful honor, I'm sure. So the owners of the company then were very, very, very worried that Maryland would not want to finish the deal. And they were right. Maryland decided not to. And so I was kind of stuck. They said, well, you have a choice. You can stay here part-time and work at the American Embassy, or you can go full-time to Korea, Japan, Okinawa, Philippines. I decided to stay. After 3 years, my wife loves it here. She's from Canada. She's a Falang who loves Thailand. And by then, I was starting to really learn the language, learn the culture. I'd studied Thai culture at the University of Hawaii. So when I came here, I had a pretty good idea about that. How many Thai people do we have here today? Cóเปลี่ยนภาษานะไหมครับก็เป็นผู้ภาษาไทย My tongue now. Okay. No, I better stay. I'll stay in English. Okay. For now. But I did find that I love Thai culture. And I really, really like Thai people. But I really wasn't all that thrilled with Bangkok, because the campus is going to be in Hua Hin, and I'd already lined up a nice little house on the beach. But we decided to stay. So I stayed with Marilyn and ended up being very fortunate to work at Chulalongkorn University. One of my colleagues, several of my colleagues are here today. So I worked at Chulalongkorn from 2004 until just a few years, just 2 years ago. But anyway, let me make this story short. In 2003, my boss from the University of Maryland, who's the president of the Asian division at the time, said, you know, David, we're going to start an online program. And I really, you need to think about teaching online. I said, oh, well, Joe, you know what? I'm interested, but I love face-to-face teaching. And he said, no, you don't understand. You are taking the online training program. Oh, okay. That was not a question. It was a command, right? So I said, well, okay, I guess that's what it is. And we started. There were 22 of us in that initial class in 2003. 6 weeks, 22 professors, 9 of us passed this course. So 13 of my colleagues did not pass. And you probably are wondering, what is going on? Why would they not pass? They were very, very stringent, 90% to pass. In other words, you need an A to qualify with that first group. And somehow, I struggled through and managed to be in that group of 9. So we started with a very small number when you think about it in terms of online teaching for a university the size of Maryland, right? So it was auspicious, but I'm glad I began the voyage, and I'll try to talk to you a little bit about it, okay? Now, the technical skills were tough enough. They weren't overwhelming, but just the technical skills alone probably kicked out a half a dozen of my colleagues just to be able to develop the system. You needed Java, and many of you have used Java, correct? So you had to convert the HTML to plain text to create nice images. HTML is no fun, right? If you've ever had to work with it. So, yes, from the no fun. So, but the real challenge is to take everything that you've done when you're face-to-face classes and now turn them into something that you can conference with and write online. So, in the beginning, it was just painful to think about how much of the time that I would spend in class, and now I've got to take that material and turn it into something in writing and try to create the same amount of engagement, try to get my students involved, just like I'm trying to get you involved now. It is a very, very tough journey to try to do it. So I want to show you something. Now, too many words on this slide. But what I want to do is kind of walk you through, I'm going to walk you through a 10-week course. Take about 2 minutes, really, 3. So, in the beginning, all those things you say, welcome to class, nice to see you, you want to do well. Now, with online teaching, you really need to get students to get involved right away. So one of the things you want to do is make sure they're checking for announcements, make sure they look for changes. You want to get into the conferences quickly. Many of you will do conferencing, I would imagine. Not sure. How many of you are actually teaching online right now? Is anybody in here doing some online teaching? Howard, I know, is Quasi. Ajahn, yes. So there's various platforms now. We can talk a little more about that at the end, maybe. But an example now, we use Blackboard at Stamford. We have to use it now. And there are hybrid courses here at the moment, meaning about 50% online, 50% face-to-face. So, but in this construct, it was all online. And in this particular course, this creating writing course that I taught, I had 24 students. They were in 16 different time zones. They were all over the world. And to try to coordinate 16 different time zones was quite an interesting journey too. So, well, you can see this first page would look something like this. First it would come up HTML, and then Java turns it into something a little more fun, a little more legible. And you can see the bottom, it says click on conferences on the left-hand side. And that would be the beginning of their online journey. Set up conferences, 3 or 4 conferences that they have to participate in during the week. So in this world of teaching, it was Monday morning was really important. No matter where you were in the world, Monday morning, if you were in this class, you needed to get online and check and see what was happening for the week. And you get in and you write responses to the questions, you set up a dialogue, you can set up a chat room, you can converse with your classmates all around the world. And they were required to do it because I make participation a pretty hefty part of the grade. For them to do well, at least 20% of the grade for me was based on how well or how often they participated. How well they participated, that was another story. But doing it often was very important. So that's not a good slide because there's too many words on it. But I wanted you to see how the opening page would look for this course. So let me jump ahead. This is a 10-week course online. So, but it would look something like this for an opening session for, now what I did is take this, and by week 8, it was a little more like this. So you would say something, okay, this week this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at images and sounds and similes and metaphors, and many of you are exposed to those things. And there was one assignment that I made. This is just one example, but it was a cliche example. And you know what cliches are, I hope, and you don't use them, I hope. But it is fun in a way to do it, because the more you recognize how things can turn cliche, is that the first time anybody ever said a cliche, it was probably pretty cool. It was something that was really interesting. People thought, wow, that's interesting. And so they started saying it, and saying it, and saying it. So eventually it gets really boring, right? Turns into, oh, 2 heads are better than 1. Oh, great, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Yes, you can. But, but after a while, it certainly gets boring. So at the end, what they do is they see something like this. And so I had them do a short story, basically, where they could use and abuse cliches all they wanted to. So they had some fun doing it. And so what I did is I took all their entries for this particular one. This is just one conference, but I wanted to just take you through one particular assignment. And so I would post this. I got all of their cliche story, and I put it together in a way that looked a little bit more like a story. Had a beginning, had a bit of a conflict in the middle, had an end, a couple crises along the way. And so, and then I ended up giving it back to them online so they can make some other final content. So this is what ended up being part of the story, first 2 paragraphs of the story. If you can read it from there, you can see almost every sentence has at least 2 or 3 cliches, right? She was standing there, pretty as a picture. I was drunk as a skunk and hot to trot. My favorite band was the Brain Deads, rockin' on. Nuttier than a fruitcake. The bass guitar, Eric Clap Pound. You guys know Eric? Yeah. All right. Playing lead guitar, fingers moving as fast as lightning. If you count the cliches, I don't know how many you can get in those 2 paragraphs, but this is only about 1/3 of the story. I will not torture you with the rest of it. But, and at the end, I put a little comment like this, and I do get more questions back and more comments back. So one of the keys was, how do you create interest? How do you get them involved? And how do you get to follow up with that so they will continue to talk about it for a little bit longer, to get involved with you again at another level, like right here. So, so this was just like one little assignment. It was not particularly difficult, certainly not one I wanted to encourage all the time, but it was just a way to show you that they get involved quite readily when it's something they can contribute to and feel good about it and see a final product. So now one thing that one thing that I'm kind of proud of is that Maryland, these classes were 10 weeks, and I introduced this concept of week 10 and a half. And many of my colleagues started to use this idea. They thought it was pretty good idea at the end to create a platform to be able to have a last say for the students. Anything they want, really. Anything about the course, anything about future courses, any comments they had that really would be useful for the teacher to develop something a little bit later. So try to encourage them to respond, do something a little bit beyond the course that we just finished. Give them a recommendation or something to look at. Some of them were so good. They were really good writers. Not cliche writers, but excellent writers in and of their own right. So, and give them some ideas. And I've helped two of those students from that class get published. And they're making very good money now in their career of writing. So, very, very proud of them, very happy for them. And every once in a while they give me a little credit. That's good. So, and usually I'd finish up with something like this for the last comment for the class, right? So they would come in and they would say some things, and eventually the responses that I would get started to become very, very nice and very, very flattering from them to be able to read some of the things that they'd done. So over the course of a couple of years of teaching online, I've been nominated for an award, the Online Teacher of the Year for the University of Maryland. And I'd gotten so many nice comments. I wanted to share a couple with you so that you as an online teacher, when your students say things like this to you, you'll feel like you might want to keep doing it. Like online teaching just might be something beyond this idea of you're losing the face-to-face, but you get a lot out of it. And now, with video and virtual and all those other things, you can throw in the face-to-face again. So it's nice to have it, right? So for a couple of years, I would get some really nice comments like this. This was for a speech class, online speech class, if you can imagine. But we did use video for this a bit. And very touching, very, very flattering. I'm not going to dwell on this too long. I just wanted to show you something for a reason. I'll tell you in 1 second, right? A lot of my students for the University of Maryland are in the military. And they're, like I said, they're all over the world. So, and working with military is a little different. A bit of a different way to deal with students because of their schedules, because of their lifestyles. But I found many of them quite engaging and good students, and hadn't really been encouraged to be good students before they entered the military. So I love teaching writing, and teaching writing online is a great thing. Of course, to teach writing online, you have to do a lot of writing online. And like I said, if you go back to this idea that if you think about the first time you build a course and getting paid for that course, you don't want to think about how underpaid you are, because you will not want to know. You're going to work a lot harder in that first course than the money you get back for doing it. But maybe by the fifth time you teach this course, you'll be revising and tinkering, not so much building from scratch, right? So by the fifth or sixth time you teach a course online, you're going, oh, now that's not so bad. Money's okay now, if you think about it, by the hour. So, and these kind of comments finally made me make a decision. Now these four things were just examples that my students were nominating me for this award. And for several years, I'll be honest, and I'm not really proud of it, I didn't apply. I didn't put my name in the hat to be in the award. I thought, I'm not full-time now, I'm an adjunct at Maryland, I'm probably not going to win. It's a worldwide award, anybody's available. But they would write things like this, and this is just excerpts from it. Those letters were all quite long. They took a lot of time to write these nominations. So finally, I just said, you know what? How can I ignore this? You know, it's just not fair to them to spend a couple hours writing a wonderful, well-written nomination. And so finally, I went ahead and put my name in that hat. And so I thanked them all, as they were my teachers at that point, to say, come on, Prof, do it. We're nominating you. Why won't you just put your name in? So I did. So they taught me a good lesson there, and I followed through. So this is kind of the crux of what I've learned so far from online teaching. And that is that the less I teach, the better I engage with students. You become more of a facilitator. You become more of a partner in the learning process. And as we know now, you can recognize that people that take classes online, they're pretty motivated anyway to take care of their own education. Building your own education is, to me, one of the most incredible changes from the way I went to school. Just go to class, look forward to the weekend, and just get on with it. Not so much anymore. I think that students really are engaged. They want to get value for the time they spend studying. And so for me, it was really, really good. So I think that by encouraging students to participate and also making it a big part of their grade, a percentage of their grade, high percentage, then I would get really a lot of responses. And the more you get, sometimes not all quality, but the quantity would often you be able to sift through and find some real gold. And for me, that was part of the reward of seeing that every week, getting them engaged in conferences, helping to build a nice relationship with those students, and carrying on those relationships long after they've graduated. So, and online, it's funny how that works sometimes. Never meet them face to face. Got students from Spain, from South America, from Sweden, other places in the world that just, I've never met them, but they're there and they write to me and we talk online about their lives. So finally this I did win, and this was a couple years ago. And Andrew was president of Maryland's Asian division then, and he sent me this letter and said, you won the award. And I said, wow, that's pretty nice. I'm very impressed and very honored. So I sent it to all my students, said, hey, look, I did win. So look what you did. You made me do this, right? So it was a good journey, and one that I've enjoyed very much. And we'll continue again. I've been working on developing the online program now with Stamford University here. And I think that we'll have that up and running pretty soon. Not just the hybrid, but face-to-face, but only online courses. So I guess in that sense, that's it. Let's talk about your teaching for a second, okay? Now, some of you are teaching online now. Do you have any questions or any ideas you want to share about what is working for you or what you think will be ahead of you if you're going to be teaching online? Let's just start with that. Anybody have any questions about, yes?
I'm actually running a program on MBA, and we're doing what we call the students to be more engaged. So we have what a system called Blackboard, and we have a collaboration space there, and we encourage the students to go online, to collaborate. The students we have are actually adult learners, but unfortunately it wasn't very successful. So my question to you is, how do you get them to be more involved? And especially we are also having an evolution, and we wanted to migrate, right, from blended learning to more online learning. So we have problem even engaging our instructor to want to transform. So would you want to share with us your experience on that? Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. That's a very good question. And that is the big challenge. How do you get them engaged? How do you get them to really be involved? Now, I use Blackboard now too with Stamford, and one of the things that I'm telling my colleagues is use those announcements. Use that announcement page and be a good writer. Try to write creative, engaging assignments. It's not just say read chapter 13, you know, and answer questions 1 through 3 and post them in week 2. Thank you. No, that's not very exciting, is it? When you read chapter 13, you're going to see a case study in there that is going to blow your mind. And what I want you to do is think about these things in there, and I want you to come back with 2 things about that case that you really loved and 2 things about that case you really hated. Things in that case that made you go, ugh, I don't like that. Or some things that you go, wow, that's a good idea. I can use that. And if they'll respond to that, and they usually do if you give them that sense that I'm interested in your answer. I'm interested in what you're going to say. And then take what I would do with some of those answers is I'd find the best, and I would take some excerpts and I'd honor those students by posting them and saying, now this is what Jed said about that particular case. And what do you think? And usually it was a good one. I wouldn't embarrass people online. It's not a good plan. They will go away. They won't come back. But by getting them to be responsible for their own education and then honoring that engagement by saying something good, posting it for the other students to see and go, ooh, that was pretty good, you know. I didn't do that well on that question, or they didn't try that hard on that question. So I think that the best thing that you can do is become a better writer right now. In the early stages of being an online teacher, can you write really engaging kinds of questions and conferences for your students? Can you make them feel like you really do like this? You enjoy your work? Can you show your enthusiasm through the tone of your writing when you're writing to them? And believe me, as a face-to-face teacher, to be able to take everything that you normally do face-to-face and try to do some of that online, it's a challenge. It really is. You might be very enthusiastic in the classroom, very animated. Can you translate that to online? I guess that's part of the challenge, isn't it? Big part. For me, it was. Like, wow, how do I do this? So I would try to write engaging announcements for the week. Like in that first Monday, every Monday, I go, and students would write back to me. I would look forward to Mondays to seeing what we're going to do for the week. And that's about as high a compliment as you can get. Right? I just can't wait for Monday so I can see what's next. Yeah, bring that on as a teacher. That's what you want to hear. And I guess that was the motivation eventually for me to go ahead and apply for that award. So I'm honored to get it. I don't dwell on it, don't think about it that much, but it was, it helps me still to think about how, as a teacher now, I want to try to carry that enthusiasm in the classroom. So as I'm now working on more online classes, the blended classes now, we're doing a lot of them, like you're working on those. And but I still love the face-to-face teaching. I just want to be able to recognize that at some point, you really don't have to see the student to make them feel really engaged. And so that's probably the best I can tell you. Become a good writer of your assignments. Of course. Now, when you talk about, if we talk about cultural issues, we have many Thai people in the room. Doctor, you're Korean, but I don't know. We could ask about the Korean students too. In Thai culture, it's the traditional Thai culture has always been teacher talks, you listen, you nod your head, smile, fake pay attention, and get a good grade. Oh, it's a beautiful Thai smile, yeah? What are you talking about? No, it doesn't matter. Just smile, yeah. So, and in the early days, I thought, wow, I must be really good. They're smiling all the time when I speak. You know, this is fantastic. I'm so good. You know. And then you ask the real question. You know, and they go, So there, if we're speaking of, I can't speak to all cultures, but believe me, I started studying Thai culture at the University of Hawaii 30 years ago. So when I came here, I actually knew a lot more about Thai culture than many of my students. You think about your culture. Do you study your culture as much as you might think? I'm an American. I had students coming up to me that knew more about my history than I do. But Thai history I knew a lot about. And the Thai cultural progression, nonverbal communication, how important it is in Thai culture. And so students were impressed. And Ajahn Yim is here. She said one of the classes that I helped coordinate was Thai culture. So, and students would come in and they look and they go, this is Falang teaching Thai culture. What is going on here, you know? And after about 2 sessions, they go, guess he knows a lot about Thai culture. So, but it really is a challenge, isn't it? To be able to try to find ways to get people engaged. Now, one of the things that I do in class, day 1, and so here you guys are in trouble. I say, well, you know, my grading system is quite simple. This row is an A. Congratulations, you guys, by the way. You get a B, Yem, B, yeah. Ajahn, C, get a grade C. Kortod now. 1 D. And the rest of you? So, say next class, don't have to do it today, don't want to embarrass you, but next time I see you guys, come up here. Yeah? Get closer. I want to see your eyes. And if I see your eyes, I know if that's a fake smile or not. Or I can, maybe not. Maybe not. Thai people are real good at that. Might be real. But trying to get people to move up in rows is kind of an online metaphor that I've used too. Get closer to the front. Let people see your eye contact. Can you feel it in writing? My, what a challenge that is, right? To try to create that tone that there's a sense of connection with your audience. And to write engaging conferences is a real challenge. I mean, it makes me feel like we're all creative writers when we do, and we do a good job.
Can you expand on that term conference that you're using?
Oh, the word conference, okay. In many of the systems now, what I recommend is, and one of the things that we've done in Maryland, is that each week, let's say you would have three main assignments that you were going to do. Let's say it would be to read short stories, and you name the short stories. So we're going to read James Joyce. We're going to read Shirley Jackson, and now I want you to answer or comment on these particular things. And I would set up questions that would make them answer. And of course, they would be open-ended questions. They have to think and respond to those questions. And then other people would have to respond to at least 2 of their classmates' answers. So that you end up by requiring at least 2 comments. And I would tell them at the beginning, no, this doesn't work. You can't just say, oh, well, that was a cool thing to say. You know, that was really interesting. And I would write back and say, you know what? What's interesting about the word interesting? You tell me what that means to you. The word interesting is the biggest cop-out on the planet. And I would write that in the conference. And then I'd get students come back and go, yeah, you're right about that. And, well, that's interesting. Yeah. Explain interesting to me, and now we've got a good conference. So what it is, Steve, is like those conferences would be the assignments, the weekly assignments. And let's say there were 3 of them per week. And in those days, the contact was with students around the world. You couldn't really expect the reality of virtual contact, right? So they'd have a week to engage in this consecutive dialogue with students around the world. And I would find ways to make them conference, right? In other words, you have to respond to at least 2, and you have to say something worthwhile, because we're going to go after you if you don't. I will go after them if they say things that are just, inane, not worth even reading. So conferencing is, right now, I suppose, just like posting assignments in that sense. Like on Blackboard now, they come up, there'll be a series, they'll say week 1 through whatever, and you post the assignments there. But I would suggest for any of you using those platforms, Leo, WebTyco, Blackboard, there's many of the others out there now, that make your announcements the focal point of the weekly assignment. You write an interesting announcement that include basics of the assignment. And with questions maybe that are going to pique their interest. For example, you might say, so how many of you I know many of you out there have watched The Hunger Games. So we're going to read some stories. And you tell me if you see some parallels between what you see from some of those characters in The Hunger Games and in these stories. And so that's what we're going to hit. And we might talk about cliches. We might talk about metaphors and similes. We can talk about case studies and things. But I think the key, though, is to try to make it feel like they're empowered and they're interested. When a student says to me, I look forward to your conferences, I feel like that was a good week. So that's what conferences are, just assignments. Yes, yes, and set up you can set up chat rooms. You can set up a way for them to talk to each other. And I would tell them, I said, look, you know what? I'm not really going to drop into your chat room unless you ask me to. That's your world. You know, just understand that maybe somebody might check it out sometime. So don't use too many words that we could not want to look at too often, right? But in some ways, I wouldn't even censor that. If they used a swear word, but it was in the right context, I go, well, this is the real world. People swear sometimes, so it is what it is. So I think that encouraging people to not feel afraid to put their opinions forth, and looking for opinions was one of the things that I would try to encourage. And I would say to students, look, when I ask for your opinion, you should smile. Because how can I grade your opinion? I mean, I can't say that you get an F for your opinion. That's just not right. And so I won't. So you get engaged with me and give me your opinion, honestly, there's no way that I can possibly give that a grade, an F, you know. So engagement is probably my key word in that sense, yeah. God, I've been talking a long time here. I don't like microphones. The acoustics are so good in here. My voice is drowning against the wall, isn't it?
No, it's good to have the mic. Yesterday, people couldn't hear in the back. Could you use a mic?
My concern is just the integrity of assignments. Because I'm a math teacher, and we know that one assignment has got only one answer. Yes. So if they can communicate, you know, we have Facebook and let's say the chat room itself, they can communicate. So we don't, I will not really know who really make the assignment. But, you know, the students, if they can copy, they will copy. So the problem is, how do we check the integrity of these assignments?
Boy, that is an incredibly good question. I mean, teaching math online, to me, when you have answers that are just, here's the answer, and how do you determine if people have been cheating, been just combining their talents to do it? The questions that have just like simple answers, like, I don't mean simple answers, but they have answers, right? They have an answer to a math question, to a statistics question. It is a far bigger challenge to try to get them to engage. Maybe with those courses, probably the key would be to try to find a way to show them how it's relevant to the real world, and say something about that before you make the assignment. You know, say, well, this is the assignment for the week in math, and can you see how this can be used? Is this useful to you? Is this a waste of your time? I don't mean to waste your time, but if this is, what do you think? So even though yours is the numbers business, I would still think that the words that you use to help move into that assignment are going to help you or hurt you based on whether or not when they do it, do they feel engaged in it, or do they just feel like, I just got to get it done, and here's the answer. How to stop people from sharing answers? I don't know how to do that. But I do know in classes where there's a lot of writing, it's pretty easy for you to start comparing. And you can always threaten them with Turnitin.com. I'd rarely do it, because I could catch them without Turnitin.com. And I would say, I don't need Turnitin.com. Look, see this sentence? You changed 2 words. Come on. Did anybody have a question? Something? Do you teach a class where you really can't control it as much with the words? You've got a stats class or a math class. I see the challenges there being beyond my scope, really, in terms of the math.
The thing I would suggest for something like a math class or an accounting class is for the homework. In other words, to do well on a test, you have to do the homework, right? Or you're not going to do well on the test. So you assign the homework, and if they didn't do it, in other words, make the homework a small percentage of the grade versus the test a large percentage of the grade. And now are you using the new testing procedures where you can tell if the student is actually the student taking the test on their own? You have to use that new technology that allows you to know which student is taking the test on their own by themselves. And I would suggest maybe doing it that way, because they have to do the homework to do well on the test, or they're not going to score well on the test. So you make the homework a small percent, make the test a large percent. In a math class, something like that.
Thanks for the assist, Steve. Yes, thank you for your question, though, because honestly, and that's an excellent question. There's just a lot of material out there that's all quantified, right? And it's not my world so much. So, anybody have any questions? Any other questions? Any other comments? I like comments. Makes your grade go up, you guys.
Well, we've had a lot of very good questions and very good discussion. Let me end with one final question for David. And
you're allowed to say I don't know.
No, you're not allowed to say I don't know. Everyone here, you only came to the conference because you're already a smart person. Okay, everybody here is smart, but who wants to be smarter? I'm going to give everyone here a chance to leave this room smarter than we arrived, because smart people learn from their own mistakes. But smarter people learn from other people's mistakes, so you don't make them in the first place. I'm going to ask David, what was the biggest mistake that he's made online, and what did he learn from it that we can all benefit from, so we don't make the same mistake when we are trying to teach online? So, David, you've given us a lot of wonderful, positive examples of success. What was one of the biggest failures of something you tried, and how did you deal with that?
I bet you hate professors like that, but just... Well, yes. I mean, we've all had failures in class. I mean, you've had good days, you've had bad days, you've had mediocre days, yeah? I can think of one. I can think of one that got me in a lot of trouble, actually, with the administration. And I'll share it with you. Don't share it with too many people, though. I was teaching an introduction to fiction class online, and we were reading short stories. And it's funny because I think I just said Hunger Games earlier, didn't I? But no, there was a story that I signed called The Lottery. And I don't know if you have ever been exposed to this story, but The Lottery was written in the late 1940s after World War II. And it's a little bit like The Hunger Games in that there's a drawing in this village in America. And at the drawing, the person that won was stoned to death. Everybody was given a stone in the village, and they stoned this person to death. Now, this story ended up being the basis for, there was a movie made called The Lottery. But if you think about it, there's a lot of dystopic movies and stories out there now. And The Hunger Games strikes me as one of those, where it's very, you put together people and they have to kill each other in order to survive. Well, this was more about this, keeping a rite, a ritual, like a fertility rite, alive way past time. And you should even be thinking about stupid stuff like that. Make a sacrificial lamb. So this short story was incredibly popular in America. It was first published in the Saturday Evening Review, or I think that's what it was. But people would write in, and they couldn't. They would say things like, "Wow, does this really happen? Where did they do this in America?" Well, of course it didn't happen. Take a drawing and have a family say, have the kid draw the black spot, and then they have to kill him. It's just crazy. But what I did is that in my face-to-face classes, I would say something like this. I'd say, well, I have some bad news. The University of Maryland has now said that they're really worried about grade inflation, and that grade inflation is a big problem at the university level now. So I don't know how to tell you this, but I have to give at least 2 Fs in class. And I really am sorry about it, but that's just the way it is going to be. I have to give 2 Fs. So in a face-to-face class, I would take a hat, and I said, I can't think of any way to do it. You're all doing fine. Nobody's failing. But I have to do it. I mean, they're really worried about this at the administrative level. So I'd take a hat with numbers in them, and I'd go around the room, and I'd say, well, we've got to draw to see who gets the Fs. And I'd put the hat in front of you. Now, what I would try to do is encourage them in a very soft way, without making it too obvious, to not draw. I want somebody to refuse me to draw, right? So, you going to draw? Would you draw? You're not going to draw? Well, what are we going to do? What should we do, class? You know what a lot of them would say? Give her the F. Give her the F. Yeah, and her. 2 Fs. Sorry. Kotolkov. Fail. Sorry. So, and then they read the story. If you assign that, if you did that little exercise before they read the story, it would never work. They're too clever. They'd figure it out. The loser gets killed, or flunks in this case. So I did this online, and I wrote a really clever intro. You know, I hate the conference said, sorry, bad news, but I have to give one of you an F. I only said one, I think, online. I have to give one of you an F. And no, nobody's doing badly at all. Everybody's doing pretty well. But what can I do? It's a new policy from the university. And I wrote that into the conference. And I was going to tell them the next day in the second conference that, no, that wasn't real, you know. I wanted you to think about that. Well, they thought about it all right. Man, did they think about it. They called the administration. They called my boss. What is this all about? I quit. This is outrageous. I would never be a part of a university that would give an F because they say you have to do it. That's the most engaged they ever were in the class. And it almost cost me my job. But when I finally told my boss what I was doing, and he said, well, okay, it's a good exercise, but, you know. So, next time I taught that class, right after I laid out that little scenario, I typed in great big letters, red, please, whatever you do not stop reading now. Don't stop. And then after that, I'd say, well, no, of course I'm making this up. You know, I would never do it. I wouldn't be part of a university who would even think about doing it. But I just wanted you to think about this as a possibility so that when you read this assignment, you can talk to us a little bit more about why people would go along with something that was a ritual or something that was, say, quote, well, it's policy, we have to do it. Why would people just go along with it instead of standing up and fighting for it? So, face-to-face with the hat, it was fun. Online, I was in deep, deep trouble, yeah. So, you have it, Howard, I confessed. Yeah. Anyway, so don't do that. anything you want to do to prompt them, to provoke them, I like that. I like it a lot, actually. Provoke them. Even get them to get a little bit upset. But you better be able to handle it quickly, right? And not give them time to go over your head and talk to administration. So I figured out how to do that in math. I have no idea how I can do it. 1 + 1 is 3. I could do this. It's called synergy, right? Synergy. 2 parts can create a stronger bond. You know what alloys are? I tell students this and so on. 1 + 1 can be 3, you know. So you go home and tell your parents, my teacher taught me 1 and 1 is 3. Well, we're changing schools now, don't worry. So. Anyway, thank you very much for staying and coming. And good luck in your own online teaching. I could put my email address up there, but if you want to talk further about it, I'll certainly talk to you about it after the session and let you know what's happening now, at least what we're doing for online stuff. And I wish you luck with your MBA program and getting them engaged. So, thank you.
Okay, and thank you to each of our two excellent instructors and excellent presenters for the session. We'll now take about a 15-minute break and then come back with 2 more very good presentations in the afternoon.